Trump's administration says, you know what we should do? We should go down and interview Ghislaine Maxwell. So the Trump administration, they have his old lawyer, somebody that's in the Justice Department, fly out. They interview Ghislaine Maxwell, and now we're finally getting a glimpse into what they talked about, into what her side of the story was. And of course, as we suspected, she's saying, nope, Trump had nothing to do with anything. The question is, how much can we believe Ghislaine Maxwell? And I'm inclined to say, not very much. Not very much at all. But let's check out what it is that she said straight from the horses and child mouth.
Very much, you guys. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Martha McCallum, and a lot of breaking news this hour. We are just starting to get a look at documents that have been released by the Justice Department just a few minutes ago. This is the audio and the transcript from the jailhouse interview with Jeffrey Epstein's convicted accomplice, Ghislaine Maxwell. Justice correspondent David Spunt is going through all of this from Washington. We're just starting to get a look, reading through some of the introduction here. David, obviously it's early. There's a lot of documents and a lot of audio here, but what have you been able to see in these so far?
Well, in just a few minutes, Martha, we've been looking through this, and we can tell you the top line here is that there's no client list, according to Ghislaine Maxwell, and there are no high-powered individuals that were on any sort of list. She did not incriminate anybody in that 9-hour interview that she did with the Deputy Attorney General, Todd Blanche. She said right here, quote, "There is no list. We'll start with that. The genesis of that story I can actually trace for you is from its absolute inception, if that is what you're interested in. That's part of the DOJ transcript." Todd Blanche went down to meet with her in a highly unusual move last month down in Tallahassee, Florida, where she was serving that 20-year sentence at the time. Now she's been moved just outside of College Station, Texas. She was Jeffrey Epstein's longtime girlfriend. She was convicted of helping him sex traffic underage female victims. I've reached out to her attorney. I've not heard anything from the attorney yet, but she also said, quote, "I do not believe he died by suicide." The official...
Let me go ahead and pause it right there real quick before we get too far down the line. She said, or the reporter said, Todd Blanche went to interview Ghislaine Maxwell in a highly unusual move. And that may leave you, if you're watching, if you're not privy to what's going on, to ask, what's so unlikely about it? Well, Todd Blanche is in the Trump administration, but he used to be Trump's personal lawyer. Do you see how this is a conflict of interest? The gentleman that is part of Trump's administration, used to be his lawyer, is going to interview the only living accomplice that's been arrested in connection with Jeffrey Epstein to determine if there's a quote unquote client list and if Trump is implicated in any files that they may have. Does nobody see how this is a conflict of interest? Nobody? Wait. We all do. Everybody understands that there is nothing good that's going to come from allowing Ghislaine Maxwell to put out a statement after she's being interviewed by somebody that has very, very personal ties to Trump. Nobody believes or can believe anything that comes out of her mouth. It's very difficult to believe anything that comes out of her mouth. The reason why is, let me make this big screen while we talk. While me and you talk, I got to make this big screen. If Trump is already saying, hey, there's nothing to see here, I wasn't part of it, we're going to go interview Ghislaine Maxwell to prove it. That's like back in the day when you called up your friend and said, yo, I was never at that party, right? Knowing that your mom is listening on the speaker, there's a certain way that you phrase a question to lead somebody into giving you the answer that you want them to give you. So when you go to interview Ghislaine Maxwell and you say, hey, Ghislaine, I'm Trump's lawyer. He was never in the files, right? She's going to say, no, Trump was never in the files. Can I have a pardon? Can you move me over to the country club jail that's over in Texas instead of the shithole that I'm in now? And she got moved over to a country club of a jail as described by a bunch of reporters. And it leads you to ask, why do they think that we're so incompetent, so ridiculously stupid that we would believe anything that Ghislaine Maxwell has to say about Trump and Epstein's ties. Now, unfortunately for Trump, he may not even be implicated. He may have never done anything that is in connection with these people. However, because for one, he sent his own personal lawyer or somebody that used to be his personal lawyer. And two, Ghislaine Maxwell has a history of perjuring herself. It makes it kind of difficult to believe anything that she's going to say. So this is coming from Forbes. It says, Maxwell was never tried or convicted of perjury. The charges were separated from other counts prior to her 2021 trial. And when she sought a retrial for her sex trafficking charges, prosecutors offered to drop the perjury charge as long as her conviction on the other more serious counts was allowed to stand. So we know that this lady has a history of lying on the stand. Now she's not on the stand. She stands to gain something by being moved to a country club of a prison. She's 60 years old. She's looking at a 20-year sentence. What incentive does she have to tell the truth? She has no incentive to tell the truth and say, oh, Trump was in there and I'm going to sit in here in jail for the rest of my sentence, the next 2 decades. You see how this is a conflict of interest? This is an insurmountable obstacle for the Trump administration if, in fact, there's nothing to be seen here. Because just having her interviewed is already a conflict of interest, and then we know that she will lie. She will lie, cheat, and steal to get whatever it is that she needs. So, unfortunately, we don't believe you. You need more people. Let's get back to this Fox News interview, or this Fox News reporting on this.
Finding was that Jeffrey Epstein died by suicide in his prison cell back in August of 2019 in Manhattan. She was charged a short time later. Again, she's serving a 20-year sentence. So Todd Blanche, Martha, goes down, talks to Ghislaine Maxwell, does a 2-day interview with her. This is all part of DOJ's transparency effort to get information about Epstein out there after the Justice Department earlier in July said that the investigation wouldn't yield anything else. It was closed. And there was major blowback toward President Trump, toward Attorney General Pam Bondi, FBI Director Kash Patel, and Deputy Director Dan Bongino, and others. It's interesting, and you can stop me if I'm talking too much here, but it is interesting. I noticed President Trump in the Oval Office, Martha, was just asked at another event, a FIFA soccer event about an hour and a half ago about Epstein documents, and he commented on that. And he said, I told Pam, meaning Attorney General Bondi and others, to get as much information out as possible. But he said, I'm afraid that it might ruin some people's lives because anybody can be accused of anything. But really the top line here.
You know, anybody cannot be accused of anything because the ties that Jeffrey Epstein has in terms of like a flight log or any sort of recordings, those things can be substantiated, right? They said that they had thousands of hours of footage of whatever Epstein was involved in. He said he had cameras all around his house. They have footage of that. They confiscated a ton of evidence. So you're not just going to put an accusation on somebody like this is still in the middle of the Me Too movement and claim that they did something without something substantial to back it up and support it, right? Or else that would be slandering somebody's name. So what other incentive would Trump have to not release the information into the public besides the fact that he could possibly be implicated in whatever is going on? Like I said, it doesn't necessarily indict him and say that you are in there. But when you start to hide the facts and obfuscate and you go down and have your own personal lawyer try to interview this lady and then she comes with the exact statement that you want to hear, it just looks suspicious. It's not necessarily saying that you did something, but it looks suspicious. We can all admit that. We've all got to admit that. Whether you're on the right, you're on the left, when they put up this flag, when they put up this statement for years and repeatedly talk about it and say, yo, this guy was into some crazy stuff and the government is hiding it from us. Then you get in power. You tell us that nothing's there. People are just going to assume that you got into your position, integrated yourself into the government, and decided that you're also going to hide the information from them as well. That's the only logical conclusion that we can make as the public after you've repeatedly told us for years that there was something there. So, unfortunately, this is you eating your own face. But this saga will continue to play on, and I don't think we're ever going to receive accurate information about Jeffrey Epstein, about Trump, if there is any information. All of the stuff that's going on that we're trying to get answers for now is going to be very, very many decades before we see the actual outcome and get all of the information. Just like the JFK files, just like the Martin Luther King files, somebody knows something. But we as the public, we as the everyday man and woman, we're not going to know what actually happened until way down the line. So if you're waiting for some sort of answer, just go ahead and hang it up. We're never going to get them. Probably not to the end of our lifetimes. So that's where we stand with the Jeffrey Epstein, Ghislaine Maxwell, and Trump triangle. Jeffrey Epstein is gone. Ghislaine has moved to a country club. And Trump was just provided an alibi saying he had nothing to do with anything. You guys can let me know what you think. As stuff comes out, I'm going to continue to talk about it. And I'm hoping that something will either concretely exonerate Trump or definitively say that he was participating or who was participating. Because everybody that was here, that was doing things, that was shaking hands and rubbing elbows with Epstein while he committed these acts, those people need to be held accountable. You cannot brutalize the kids of our country or the kids anywhere in any country and think that you're going to continue to walk among us as a free person or get moved to a country club so you can strike a deal about leaving certain people's names out of the files, out of the information. And one more thing before we wrap up, as far as an Epstein list, they keep trying to make it seem like, oh, well, there's no list. There are a set of people that they know are into the thing that Epstein was into. We're not talking about a little black book that he kept from A to Z of every person that he knew. We obviously know that there's not a contact list. We're talking about an Epstein list of people that appear in videos, appear in flight logs, appear in text messages, appear in bank records. That's what we are looking for when we say a client list, not a black book. Stop trying to pretend like you people don't know what we're talking about. You know, but language is important. So I wanted to clarify for you what it is that we're looking for so you can't pretend as if you didn't know.